Three, two, one.
Hello and welcome. Happy Saturday. It is wild card weekend in the NFL. Today kicks off 3 consecutive days of playoff games. I am here to preview all 6 games as we get ready to go into wild card weekend. But before we get there, there was a little bit of news this week, so let's dive in. The first big piece of news was the coaching changes that were made, as was kind of expected. Doug Peterson was let go from the Jacksonville Jaguars. The Patriots also decided to move on from Gerard Mayo after just 1 year in New England. And the Las Vegas Raiders decided to move on from Antonio Pierce. Those join all the coaching openings that we had throughout the regular season, where we moved on from coaches to places like the New York Jets. The New Orleans Saints already had openings and had already begun the process. Chicago Bears had let go of Matt Eberflus during the season. So we have quite a few openings. It's going to be interesting. There have been a lot of people out doing interviews, but so far no hirings have come through. So we'll see if that changes prior to next week's game, but something to keep an eye on. The other big piece of news surrounded Cleveland Browns quarterback Deshaun Watson. He had a setback in his rehab. He had torn his Achilles tendon during the season, requiring surgery. He retore it during rehab, which is a real bad sign. He had surgery again on Thursday this week, is what they said. So he is likely out all of the 2025 season. His contract is guaranteed. They will have to keep him for a couple more years. But the question is, what are they going to do at the quarterback position? They landed the number 2 overall pick. I would suspect they will definitely be in line to potentially take a quarterback, and that creates an interesting situation. Number 1 overall pick is the Tennessee Titans. They moved on from GM Ryan Carthon, but they kept coach Brian Callahan. However, it didn't really work out with Will Levis. Mason Rudolph not feeling like the answer. They're likely to go for a quarterback. So what does that leave for a team like the New York Giants, who now have number 3 pick? They already have pretty much declared they need a quarterback. They released Daniel Jones midseason. Drew Lock and Tommy DeVito, probably not it. So it's going to be some interesting wheeling and dealing. You have that combined with a few veterans that may hit the market. Latest news out of Atlanta is they may or may not be looking to release and trade Kirk Cousins, talking about how he could make a great number 2 there. Going to be interesting to see what do the Vikings do once their playoff run and season is over with Sam Darnold. They have JJ McCarthy there waiting in the wings. What decisions end up getting made? There are a lot of interesting movements that are going to happen. The new league year kicks off in early March, so going to be a fun run up to that between when the Super Bowl ends and when we start free agency. We will look to see some of these coach hirings and get news as we continue through the postseason. But speaking of the postseason, it's time to talk playoffs. As I mentioned, we have 6 games, 2 on Saturday, 3 on Sunday, 1 on Monday Night Football. Let's dive in. The first of the Saturday games features the 11-6 Los Angeles Chargers, the number 5 seed in the AFC, at the 10-7 Houston Texans, who finished as the number 4 seed, winning the AFC South. Both teams come in an interesting matchup. The Chargers have been a little hotter down the stretch, really winning out to make sure they leapt to the Pittsburgh Steelers to get to the number 5 seed, to get the chance to play in Houston instead of having to travel to Baltimore. The Texans ended on a little bit of a slide. Their division wasn't incredibly competitive. They locked that up early. They had a couple of big national window games the Saturday before Christmas against the Chiefs and Christmas Day against the Ravens, and neither of those looked great if you were a Houston Texans fan. They did have a nice opening drive in week 17 against the Tennessee Titans, but It's fair to wonder how this is going to turn out. I think this could be one of the lower scoring games in the wild card weekend round. I am going with the Chargers to get the road win there. On the second game, this is exclusive to Prime Video. This is Saturday night, so tonight, the 10-7 Pittsburgh Steelers, who finished as the number 6 seed in the AFC, coming off 4 straight losses to end the season, are at the 12-5 Baltimore Ravens. They won the AFC North. They are the number 3 seed. These two teams recently locked horns the Saturday before Christmas, with the Ravens easily dispatching the Steelers in that one. The Steelers won their first matchup. That was a very tight game. Could have gone either way. A couple of blown opportunities by the Ravens helped the Steelers get the win. But technically, these teams did split their regular season games. However, going into the playoffs, they're just teams trending in the opposite directions. The Ravens finished very strong, looking more like the dominant team that a lot of people thought they would be this season. The Steelers, as I mentioned, coming off of 4 straight losses. Anything can happen in these division games, the rubber match, but I am going with the Ravens in this one. I think they will hold up at home. Transitioning to Sunday morning, the first of the Sunday morning games, the 10-7 Denver Broncos, who made it back to the playoffs after 8 years as the number 7 seed, at the 13-4 Buffalo Bills. This is a matchup of the only two teams to beat the Kansas City Chiefs during the regular season, but the Bills are the only team that beat the Chiefs when the Chiefs were playing at full strength and beat Patrick Mahomes during the regular season. They're the number 2 seed for a reason. I think they're a very strong contender in the AFC. I've been, as a Broncos fan, very excited by what we saw this year. I'm excited about the future. This is a very young team. They'd have to play a near perfect game, I think, to really have a chance here. I think this will be close and competitive. I hope it's going to be a little bit of fun, but I'm going with the Bills to win and advance. So that's the 3 in the AFC slate. I am going with the Bills, the Ravens, and the Chargers, which, if that's set up, then would mean Ravens Bills next weekend and Chargers Chiefs rematch in the divisional round. Moving on to the NFC, the middle game on Sunday features the 7th seeded Green Bay Packers, who finished 11-6, at the 2nd seeded Eagles, who finished 14-3. These two teams played on week 1 of the NFL's regular season down in Sao Paulo, Brazil. This was one of the international games. The Eagles were able to get the victory there. 3 big touchdowns from Saquon Barkley helped to power that. Going into this one, both teams nicked up. The Packers ended on a 2-game losing streak, including a loss to the Bears in Week 17, and they were playing starters in that game, which is how they lost Christian Watson. He tore his ACL. He is out for the rest of the year. Jordan Love got banged up in that game, but he is off the injury report and good to go. The Eagles, meanwhile, played the last 2 games of the regular season without Jalen Hurts, who was dealing with a concussion. He is off the injury report and also looks to be good to go, so we should see both quarterbacks here, and we will also see Saquon Barkley, who got a week of rest in Week 17, didn't break the all-time rushing record, but still did finish with more than 2,000 rushing yards in the season. I think this is going to be a fun game. Some people think that the Packers are going to be sneaky upset picks here. I think that they have a decent team, but they ended on a little bit of a slump. I like what the Eagles have been doing. I think Jalen Hurts will be ready to come back. I have the Eagles winning and advancing. Sunday Night Football features the number 6 seeded Washington Commanders, who finished at 12-5, at the number 3 seeded Tampa Bay Buccaneers, 10-7. They won the NFC South. Buccaneers made it interesting. They lost in Week 16, which I thought was a little bit of a blow. They were down early against the Saints, but had to come back and won in convincing fashion. Washington, meanwhile, kept trudging ahead, finished very strong, beat the Eagles in their rematch down in Washington, and ended up being able to leap the Packers so that they did not have to return to Philadelphia in the wild card round. This is also a matchup of 2 teams who played in week 1 of the regular season. That was a Tampa Bay 37-20 victory at home. I don't know if they'll win by 17 points at home this time, but I do like Tampa Bay to get the win. An interesting matchup will be cornerback Marshawn Lattimore for the Commanders going against Mike Evans. Those two always had some fierce battles when Lattimore was with the Saints. it'll be interesting to see that in the postseason. Jaden Daniels had a very strong season, should be the rookie of the year. We'll definitely have the Commanders ready to play. I'm excited to see this one. I think it'll be close, but I am going with the Buccaneers to win and advance. Monday Night Football, the last game of the wild card weekend, sees the 14-3 Minnesota Vikings, who have the most wins of any wild card team in history at 14, at the 10-7 Los Angeles Rams. Rams won the NFC West, kind of outlasted all the competition in the NFC West to get that division crown. Unfortunately, due to the wildfire situation in Southern California and Los Angeles, we should be thinking about and praying for all those victims. They have moved this game. The Rams picked up their entire organization, moved down to Phoenix. They are going to play in the Arizona Cardinals Stadium. So upsets a little bit of the home field advantage. These two teams played during the regular season. That was a 30-20 Rams victory. Matthew Stafford tossed 4 touchdowns in that one. Sam Darnold, 2 touchdowns, no interceptions. The Vikings struggled to get the run game going and struggled to keep their defense going. That was a little earlier in the season before TJ Hawkinson was back. The Vikings coming off a very tough Week 17 game. Their offense did not look great as they lost 31-9 to Detroit to end up in this wild card round. The Rams sat their starters in Week 17, so they'll come in fresh. They are relatively healthy. We have Puka Nacua, Cooper Kupp, Kyron Williams. They're all ready to go with Matthew Stafford. This could be a very good and competitive game. The coaches know each other. Kevin O'Connell previously worked for the Rams and Sean McVay, but he has done a wonderful job in Minnesota. I get that a lot of people are picking the Rams. The Rams won during the regular season. The Rams didn't seem afraid of having a rematch. All those things are true, but Minnesota had such a magical season. They did so well, and I think Sam Darnold has come so far. I think they continue that here, at least in the first game of the playoffs. I think the Vikings will get the win. So that is the end of the NFC slate. So I'm predicting the Eagles, Buccaneers, and Vikings to get the win. If that falls into place, the Buccaneers would go to the Eagles. That would be a rematch of last year's playoff game that the Buccaneers won, while the Vikings would go for a third meeting with the Detroit Lions back in Detroit. And man, that could be a heck of a divisional round game. So let's see how this all shakes out. But that's what my predictions are for NFL's wild card weekend. Well, that'll do it for me today. I hope you guys enjoy 3 fun days of NFL playoff football and have a wonderful rest of your weekend.